Joining us now to discuss these latest developments, Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass of California. She sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congresswoman, thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. On this new North Korea reporting, the president tweeted this: North Korea has agreed to suspend all nuclear tests and close up a major test site. This is very good news for North Korea and the world. Big progress. Look forward to our summit. This does seem to be a pretty big announcement coming out of the Korean Peninsula. What is your reaction to this development?
Well, a couple of things. My initial reaction is with caution. In a way, the announcement sounds a little ominous. As your reporter just described, they say they don't need to test anymore, so I guess that means that they're ready to fire. But the fact that there might be discussions between our two countries, I think it's very interesting. One of the concerns I have, though, is whether or not either side will be consistent. We know that President Trump is very inconsistent, and we also know that Kim Jong-un is very inconsistent. So whether or not both sides even make it to a summit will be one issue. But I do think that the point that you raised a minute ago is that there has been no discussion on Kim Jong-un's part about getting rid of nuclear weapons. All he is saying is that we've tested. It's almost like we're ready to go. We don't need to test anymore, so let's have a summit.
Well, this comes also days after President Trump vowed to walk out of this summit meeting with Kim Jong-un, potentially, or not even attend one if he didn't believe the talks would be fruitful. Let's listen to what the president said exactly.
Sure.
If I think that it's a meeting that is not going to be fruitful, we're not going to go. If the meeting, when I'm there, is not fruitful, I will respectfully leave the meeting, and we'll continue what we're doing or whatever it is that will continue, but something will happen.
What do you think of the president's strategy and what he's saying leading up to these talks?
Well, my biggest concern is I'm not sure he has a strategy at all. He starts by completely humiliating the guy, calling him, names, and then humiliating his Secretary of State in saying that there's no cause for us to have negotiations. Now to say he's suddenly going to have a summit. That's why I said that there's no real, we don't have any real proof that there will be consistency on his part. Can I mention one thing, though, is that the Korean American community is looking at this. Los Angeles has one of the largest Korean American populations outside of Korea. And part of the community is very excited about the idea that there might be a summit. And one of the things that they are hoping that the U.S. offers is family unification, so that Koreans that live here would be able to travel to see their relatives in North Korea, many of whom don't have many years left. And so they're pushing very hard that the United States use that as a, as a token of goodwill to allow family unification to take place.
You talked about this optimism of a meeting period happening because it's been so many years where people weren't talking to each other. Democrats have, though, criticized this president for some of his rhetoric on North Korea. Here's just a quick reminder.
Exactly.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
If the sanctions don't work, we'll have to go phase two. And phase two may be a very rough thing, may be very, very unfortunate for the world.
Congresswoman, given we are where we are today, could some of that tough talk have actually worked?
Well, that's the point of who knows. Again, Kim Jong-un has not said he's getting rid of nuclear weapons. He just says he's done testing. So how do you go from Rocket Man to saying, let's have a summit? Then when you say you're going to have a summit, say, well, if it's not going the way I like, I'm going to get up and walk away, and I might not even have it. So that's why I said a couple of minutes ago that I don't believe that the president has a strategy. You do remember when he decided to have the summit, he did it on a whim. No one knew he was going to make that decision. He walked into some people talking in the White House and said, yeah, I think I'll do a summit. Just a few weeks before, he had completely ridiculed his own Secretary of State at the idea that he would even think about having negotiations with North Korea. So who knows what this president will do leading up to the summit that doesn't even have a date.
Since you're from California, I also want to switch topics for a moment and ask you a little bit about what the president said this week as it pertains to immigration and some comments from the president on sanctuary cities. Here's what he tweeted. There is a revolution going on in California. So many sanctuary areas want out of this ridiculous, crime-infested and breeding concept. What do you think the president is getting at there?
Well, I think the president has been very consistent with racist comments, and I think that is a perfect example of one. But it's interesting because he tends to throw out bombs like that, especially bombs regarding race, when things aren't going so well. So all the controversy over the Comey memos, the Comey book, the interviews, and now all of a sudden he goes back to what he feels appeals to his base. Animals breed, humans do not. That is a racist dog whistle term. When he uses the terms like that and talks about crime, connecting it with a community of color, like the immigrant community that he's talking about, he is doing that, to me, to gin up racism in the country. And I think it's so sad, but he's very consistent about doing this. Tomorrow it'll probably be the NFL again. Today it's immigration.
Congresswoman Karen Bass, thank you very much for joining us.